Okay, we're going to do a problem that says define the inverse. Now, to have an inverse, a function must be 1 to 1. So suppose we have f of x is equal to x cubed plus 7. Now again, for a function to have an inverse, it must be 1 to 1. So this function is 1 to 1, and it has an inverse. Now, remember, to find the inverse, what do? We replace the what? X and y's, we swap them, right? So first of all, f of x is just y. So let's write it first as y equals x cubed plus 7. Now, instead of what? X and y, what do? Is we're going to swap them. So to swap them, this is x, and this is equal to, instead of x, we're going to put y cubed plus 7. And then we want to solve for y. So to solve for y, the first term that's bothering the y is a 7. So let's subtract 7 from both sides. So then you'll notice on the left we get x minus 7 is equal to y cubed. Now we want to either take the cube root or raise both to the 1/3 power. So it's probably a little easier to take the cube root of both sides. So when we take the cube root of this side, and why do we take the cube root? Because we want to solve for y. And then we got to take the cube root of this side. So taking the cube root of this side, that's x minus 7, and then don't forget the cube root. So then y comes out, and then what do we get? We get the cube root of x minus 7. And then in place of y, that is really the inverse function. So let's put that f inverse of x, and it's all in terms of x. So that's equal to, and then again we have the cube root of what? X minus 7, and that's the inverse. Okay, so that's an example of finding the inverse algebraically. So what did I do? I found the inverse algebraically, and this is in section what? 5.2. So this is in section 5.2. And notice the organization. So the first step is, what do? Is you replace f of x with y. And then what do? You swap the x's and the y's. And then what do you want to do is you want to solve for who? Y. And then at the very end, what do? You replace y with f inverse of x. So that's how you find the inverse. And again, to have an inverse, what does the function have to be? It has to be a 1 to 1 function. Okay.